I'm Jos Rosen from RadioGardenSense.com. We're going to have a little talk about your fall bulbs now. Normally they're sold, normally you find them in a bag, maybe 10 or 15 pre-packed. But I'm not really in favor of those because I used to do it myself. We get the premium bulbs and we pack them in those little boxes here, and people can see what they're buying. They buy the number ones. The pre-packs, those are the last leftovers, smaller sizes, because if you look at this bulb here, and say for instance you take one of those out of these boxes here, you'll see the size difference. This is a double nose, this is a single nose, 1 flower, 2 to 3 flowers out of this bulb. So you're always better off getting them loose, and you know what you're buying. This, if we have a lot of yellow ones left over, I'll put a lot of yellow ones in the bag. If we have a lot of pink ones left over in the mixed batches, you end up with more pink than yellow. So whatever is left over goes in these pre-packed bags. The best selection or varieties in those daffodils are the trumpet daffodils, but with the shorter trumpet. They seem to repeat better than, say for instance, the standard trumpet daffodils. There are some exceptions, of course. My favorite, Dutch Master, he'll come back very, very good. I would say will be around if you feed your daffodils when you plant them in the time when you plant them, and then every year, sometime in October, you feed them with the Plant Trust, and it's a Professor of Flower Food bulb fertilizer. So you can feed them with that. So plant them. After they're planted, make sure that the soil drains well. Don't plant them too deep. On the directions it will say maybe about 6 inches. If your soil is clayous, you may put them 4 inches. If the soil is sandy and it drains real well, put them 6 inches deep, but watch the drainage. So we feed them with the Plant Trust Professor Flower Food. On the directions on the back it will say bulb fertilizer, so use the directions on these containers. Now we go from the daffodils to the tulips, and you see a lot of tulips over here, but the best are the single early varieties. So there are groups. You got single early, you got Darwins, you got Darwin hybrids, but the single early, they're a little shorter, they bloom a little earlier, but not quite as early as, say for instance, the Red Emperor. It's probably one of the most sold tulip in the nation here, but they don't have any durability. So I do not recommend them. Look for single early, like for instance Mickey Mouse is one of them. And then the next choice is the Darwin hybrids. So that's a hybrid between a late tulip and a single early tulip. So they were a little bigger, the flower in the stem, and they have the durability of that single early plant. There's not that many have fragrance like the single early tulips, but they have the durability. And they will bloom, I would say, about a week or 2 to 3 before it gets warmer and you start planting annuals. Because if you go further down the line here, the late tulips and the double tulips and the lily flowering tulips, they bloom in a time when it already gets into May, and that's the time when you start thinking about putting summer flowers in the ground. So my suggestion is plant tulips not too early, not too late, so in the medium range, and those are tulips that can take the heat a little bit, because it's not Holland here. In April we have some warm days. Of course in New England it's going to be early May, we have some warm days, but they can take that fairly good. If you plant the late varieties, it's hot all the time, they may bloom for you about 10 days, and that's not good. The nice thing about daffodils, what we talked about earlier, is deer won't eat them. So you don't have to worry about if you have woods or you have rodents, deer. Daffodils will come back for you when you feed them with the Plant Trust for the next, I would say, 8 to 10 years. If they're not fed, then you're looking at maybe about 5-6 years, and after that those leaves come up, and then you have no flowers after that. Tulips, if you go with the single early and the Darwin hybrids, you're good for about 2 or 3 years with feeding. If there's no feeding done, then 2 years max. With the feeding, you get an extra year out of it. And I'm Jos Rosen from RadioGardenSense.com.